So our next speaker slash presenter slash ninja is Dr. Gregg Rentfrow. He is an extension professor of meat science at the University of Kentucky. Dr. Rentfrow has been coming to Maine for the past 5 years to help me teach. Actually, he teaches the Maine Meat Cutting School, and I just do all the prep work behind him.
Yeah, he drives me around.
This is a man of many talents. Okay, not only does he know how to cut meat, he rides Harleys.
Yep.
He does mixed martial arts. He has a black belt.
Wow, stay away.
No, it just means I know dangerous
He
people.
probably knows everything there is to know about Marvel movies and NASCAR.
Yep.
And I'm teaching him how to build guitars.
Teach me how to build guitar, and I teach third grade catechism as well. So,
enjoy. What he's going to do is he's going to cut these up and tell you about the new beef alternative marketing cuts associated with them. And then after he gets done cutting them up, I'm going to cook them on a grill right over here, and then we're going to eat lunch.
sound good? All right, well, good. I tell you, I love coming up here. All right. The cool thing is Colt has me come up either in the spring or the fall, so I miss the winter, which is good because you think of meat. I hate cold weather. I really do. But I think Dr. Limcooler backed me up on this. This is not a weekend for us to be in Lexington. All right. So much like you guys, it's our homecoming. We have Mississippi State tonight. And we also have Keeneland, which is our horse racing track. It's their fall meet going on. So traffic is big. And then last night we had Big Blue Madness, which kicks off our basketball season. And I don't know if you've paid attention to what happens in Kentucky. We tend to take our basketball and our horse racing a little serious, okay? So if you don't have to go to Lexington today, don't. Yeah.
I was going to ask if Coach Calipari had autographed your hat.
No, I don't have.
That might increase their value.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Coach Cal. Yeah, he. It's funny. He's on the other end of campus. I don't see him very much. I see our football coach all the time. I cut meat for our football coach as well. But yeah, Coach Cal. He's kind of a celebrity, so to speak. So, but let's get the hamster on the wheel, shall we? I'm going to take a two-pronged approach to explain to you why I'm going to do what I'm going to do to this ribeye, okay? Because once you see me start delving into this ribeye, some of you are going to faint, some of you are going to cuss at me, and others of you might even pray to exercise whatever meat-cutting demon I have out of me, all right? Because I'm going to, like Colt said, beef alternative merchandising. And so I'm going to take a two-prong approach to explain to you why I'm going to do what I'm going to do to this ribeye. And the first thing, and this was something that I have to confess, being a professor, I have a 20% teaching appointment. So I teach class, I teach kids how to do this, all right? And it's really kind of interesting because, my meat processors there in the Commonwealth and my beef farmers and my pork farmers and so on, they'll ask me, okay, you teach that class, yeah? How many kids you get? I usually average around 35, 40 kids in my class. Really? I said, yeah. I said, here's going to shock you. Of those 40 kids that I have, a big class of boys for me is 10. 10 boys. So that, if you do the math, that means the rest are girls. And then I get the question, okay, what type of girl takes your class? And you say, why? What's that big deal? Because I get them on the kill floor, and we actually harvest the animals, teach them how to do that. We cut them up, cut the carcasses up, and make sausage, ground beef, all that fun stuff with it. And then all of a sudden they find out you're teaching them how to kill animals, and you've got girls in your class. Yeah, I do. Actually, I joke. I've got, because they want to know what type of girl takes your class. Because we do that kind of stuff. And one year, I had a young lady who was a model. She did a lot of local fashion catalogs and stuff like that. Had another one that was a volleyball player. I can't quite get up to the height of those girls. 6'3". Morgan was 6'3". I've had 3 UK cheerleaders. They're about that tall. One stayed on with me and got her master's, and she was an inch taller than needing a booster seat. when we drove anywhere. And then another one, it was kind of funny because one came up to me and she said, I see you like the hard rock and heavy metal. So this is where Colt and I are kind of diverging on our guitar building. He builds the country guitars. I want something that when I hit it, it melts your face. That's what I want. And so this young lady comes up to me and she says, hey, I see you like hard rocks. Yeah, I love it. She says, you like Papa Roach? I said, yeah, that's my uncle. What? Yeah, Jacoby Shattuck's my uncle. You know, so get all kinds of girls in there. And the one thing that I strive to do when I'm teaching is I really want to be a good teacher. My dad taught high school agriculture in Illinois, where I'm from. And so I really want to be a good teacher. And so one of the things that I hooked up with early on in my career was a fellow student. Okay, he and I were grad students at Missouri. Like Dr. Limkuhl and I were grad students in Missouri as well. And but he was an ag ed. And one thing he told me, he says, you need to understand the kids you're teaching. And I didn't quite know what he meant. And then he said, the generation. Okay, so if you think about what we've got going on out there as far as generations, all right, right now we're teaching this Generation Z. When I started, we had the millennial generation, all right? And so I learned how millennials were, and I'm learning how Generation Z are. But then I got kind of thinking about that, and I thought, I wonder if teaching millennials and Generation Z, they're so different to teach. I wonder, does that affect anything like their buying and eating habits? And so I started doing research on that, and you discover pretty quickly, there's actually 4 generations out there. Baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Generation Z. Each of those generations all buy food differently, they eat differently, they shop differently, they go to restaurants differently than each other. So it's important to understand that, okay? It's important to understand that because you have to understand who's buying this, all right? This is a ribeye. So in a grocery store, this is a double-digit per pound product, all right? $15, $16, $17 a pound. And much like I told the guy that sold me my truck last month, yes, I work for UK. No, I do not make Coach Cal type money, okay? So with that being said, then you start thinking about who's going to buy this. Okay, who's going to buy this? And then you look at those generations, okay? And you're probably looking at that baby boomer who's going to buy it. All right? So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind because that baby boomer is going to come back into play, the reason why I'm going to do what I do to this thing, okay? So if you're keeping track at home, okay, we got the baby boomers, the Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z. And you're probably wondering, how do you tell them apart, okay? So Dr. Limkuhl and I, we're Generation X, goatee, okay? Dr. Knight, Dr. Romero, they're millennials, full beard. See that? That's how you tell, okay? That's how you tell the difference between them. So now, looking at this guy, and I promise we're going to get back to that second point, this label on here has everything we need to know about it, okay? It has where it came from, okay? We have to know exactly where it came from. It has all these label claims on here like raised without antibiotics, no added growth promotants, and so on and so forth. But then you see this round symbol right here. And feel free to get up here, all right? I swear I've cut meat for 35 years. You're not going to get cut, all right? But you can see this round symbol. Okay, that round symbol tells me that it has been inspected by the government. That's an inspection legend. And right below it, there's this EST, which stands for establishment, and then there's a number. And that establishment number tells me where this product came from. Okay, that number is like a Social Security number, where everybody has their own personal Social Security number. Every packing plant has their own establishment number that are USDA inspected. All right, these are probably better than Social Security numbers because according to some of these places that watch your credit and stuff like that, my wife's Social Security number appears on the dark web several times. I have no idea what the hell the dark web is, but it's always on there. And the next thing we see is a shield that says USDA choice, okay? That's the quality grade. That was something that Dr. Lemkuhler was talking about earlier, that whole concept of the quality grade and how we get to where we need to be. And that'll make more sense if you're not familiar with that here in a second. But inspection, that's by law. That's mandatory, okay? That's mandatory. Has been since 1906. Our taxes pay for that. Quality grade is not mandatory. I can sell something having it quality grade. That just tells me the palatability of it. Okay, that tells me the palatability. So let's open this guy up, all right? So he's in a vacuum bag. That's what this guy is right here. And this is the way meat is marketed. It has been this way ever since I started cutting meat in the late 80s, is it comes in a vacuum bag like this. And it's put inside a box. And it goes to your grocery store inside that box, okay? So here's the challenge we have with these guys, okay? And this is gonna come into why I'm going to do what I'm going to do to this. And so somehow my knives shifted on the flight here. Flight was pretty good. Everybody said, how was your flight in? Dr. Lemkuhler and I, we flew to Charlotte, and then from Charlotte to here in Bangor. And we knew there was a nor'easter going on. The landing was fun. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of Christians on that flight. I can tell you that right now. So I'm gonna face this up, facing up. So you can see how it's kind of angled there, all right? If I cut just straight like that, I'm gonna get a doorstop. I don't want a doorstop, okay? Because one end's gonna be overcooked, the other one's probably undercooked. So I'm gonna face him up a little bit, okay? And then I'm gonna cut my ribeyes. And I am an old school meat cutter. I cut everything about a butcher's inch, which is about 1.25 inches. And I do that to stop you guys from overcooking, okay? Because I know the average American has a short attention span, and if I cut it thicker, you're gonna get bored and you won't overcook it, okay? So, can you see the challenge we have with this guy? All right, and you're probably saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, and feel free to come up here and look at this guy. I'm gonna trim him up a little bit so he looks nice and pretty for y'all. So if this thing, these guys, let's just say $15 a pound. Just throwing that out there. I don't know why I chose it. Just said $15 a pound. And you have these two in a package at that thick cut that I gave it there. Okay, so I don't know, that's probably roughly a couple dollars or a couple pounds there. So you do the math, that's what, about $30? Okay. So if you think about those 4 generations, okay, we're Gen Xers, Dr. Lemkuhler and I, we're Gen Xers. We have families. His is older than mine. My daughter's 14, okay? And so I'm just started the teenage years. He's coming out of them, all right?
I'm just out of the teenage years.
He's just out of the teenage years. I tell you what, I told my wife, I said, I need to figure out how to make a moonshine still in the garage and just lay underneath it until she turns 20, all right? So, but we have families. $30 for that package, probably not in my wheelhouse. Millennials, they're just starting out. They're buying houses, they're getting married. They're starting families as well. You think they're going to shell out $30? Probably not. Probably not. Generation Z, are you going to shell out $30 for that package? Yeah, they're over here saying, no. In reality, they're saying, I don't know, let me ask my mom first. Because we know where the money comes from. So then you look at who can afford it. So our baby boomers, okay, they're better money managers than the other generations, right? They are. They got stuff paid off. In 14 more years, my mortgage is paid off. You know, so they got stuff paid off. They have the disposable income to buy something like this. But baby boomers have realized that Latin saying, tempus fugit memento mori. Time flies, remember death. Okay? So Gen Xers and baby boomers, guess what we've realized that the millennials and the Generation Z hasn't figured out yet? We're going to die, okay? We're going to die. And so we want to be here as long as we can, because trust me, when it comes for me to time to stand in front of God and St. Peter and Jesus, what do you got to say for yourself? I got a lot of explaining to do. So we can put that off so we can fix some of these things. So that there, portion size is way too big for that baby boomer. Okay? So with that being said, somebody asked me one time, okay, if that portion size is way too big, why is it that big? Well, it's that big for a reason, all right? Because one of the things I tell my students, and I'm sure you Maine students get told the same thing, my job, Colt's job, Jeff's job, our students that are here, your job, our job, we've got to figure out how we're going to feed 9 billion people, okay? 9 billion people. And you would say, well, that's pretty easy. Well, it is, but we have a shrinking land mass, right? Cities are getting bigger. Farm grounds being sucked up for subdivisions and things like that. And so how did the industry respond to trying to feed everybody? When a shrinking land mass, they made the animals bigger. You know, prime example, right before the pandemic, I was in Omaha, Minnesota, Omaha, Nebraska. Let me try that again. At Omaha Beef. Big plant. They're killing probably 400 head an hour. Cattle. There wasn't a carcass weight in there under 825 pounds. So if you back calculate, you're talking about a 1,400 and a half to a 1,1600 pound animal. Okay? For your average hobby farmer, that's inconceivable. That's a monster. And they're monsters. I can tell you, I've had to retrofit my meat slab because when we do beef research, we try to mimic what's happening in the industry, and a 50-year-old facility wasn't designed for animals that big. So I've had to retrofit things to handle those big animals because we got a lot of people to feed. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, I see why they're bigger, but that's a $30 ring. What can I do? Okay, bear with me, okay? Because the first time I did this, we work a lot with our beef council there, and one of the young ladies that I work with, she and I had a bunch of retailers in the room. We had a bunch of chefs in the room, and what I did, and I showed them how to do this kind of stuff, the chefs thought it was cool. Retailers, 2 or 3 of them got up and literally, gospel, got up and left. Because when I'm going to do this thing, you don't do to it. This is a sacred cut, okay? But you'll understand why I'm going to do it here in a second. So this fat cap that's on here, I'm just going to pull this guy back here. I'm going to take it all the way around. So basically, I'm peeling all this off, okay? Sometimes you get to the point, we've got to tease it a little bit here. It's a little tight down here. And so that this is called the lip. I'm going to come right around that lip. Just like so. Ta-da! So there's the lip. All right. But you got that piece right there. Yeah? Let's see what we can do with this guy. I could throw it in there. He could go on to make ground beef, and he could. But I just took a $15 cut and turned it into a $3 package, okay? So maybe there's something I can do with this. I'm going to try to tease it out, and I apologize for being a little bit slower. I'm used to working here, I'm way down here. So, what's that? I warned you about that. I know it, but I'm an old hat with the caffeine, Jeff. I got her. So pull this guy out, and now you can do a lot of stuff with this. So I could come in here and cut him about yay thick, okay, like so. What do you think you do that?
Stir fry, right?
You could stir fry it. But if I put a skewer through it, I got kebabs. Or the other thing, if I stir fry, maybe I got a protein topper for a salad, because welcome to America. Only Americans can take a salad and make it 13,000 calories, right? That's American right there. That's not America, that's American, you know. So you could do that kind of stuff. So it does have culinary value, okay? So now, see these pieces right here? I'm going to take those off. These are intercostal muscles. And you say, what's the big deal? If it had a bone attached to it, you'd be all about it. Okay? That's that meat in between the ribs. Okay? And these guys are a little bit tough. One of the things that we could talk about in tenderness is what makes things tender, what makes things not so tender. And one of the things that makes things not so tender is what that muscle did when it was alive. And so the activity of that muscle, okay, the activity of that muscle will dictate that. We have some muscles that are used for locomotion, right? And then we got some muscles that are solely used to support the body. This is a muscle, this series of muscles in here are used to support the body, the skeletal frame. They don't get used very much. These guys, you think about it, every time he breathes, they get used. That round gets used. That chuck gets used. That brisket gets used. Consequently, what's the price of the round and the chuck? A little bit down, aren't they? And then these muscles through here. See where I'm going with this? Grocery stores price via tenderness. I cut meat retail 14 years before I realized that. So don't feel bad. Okay? Don't feel bad. So I got to get these guys off, all right? So let me get these guys off. Now, here's where we go sideways with this, all right? I'm going to try to make these portion sizes small. You say, well, didn't you make it smaller? Yeah, but all I did was that, all right? Now, see this cap that's right on top of this ribeye muscle? What if we did this? What if we came in here and we took that cap off of there? Brace yourselves. Okay. What's that? No, we're getting that one. We're going to get that one. But this sets in a seam, as you can see right there. Okay. And that connective tissue, you can see that heavy connective tissue, I get a kick out of it. I really do, because the reason why I get a kick out of it, all right, what was going on here? I'm going to try the other end because I think I'm messing that up. So one of the things that everybody thinks they like is prime rib. And I say they think they like, because sometimes people are not a big fan of prime ribs and others are. And I see individuals in the restaurant and they're buying prime rib. And the guys, that connective tissue right there, they eat it down. Women will eat around it, okay? I don't know why. Come on, ladies.
Texture.
Texture?
I just can't with the fat.
Can't with the fat? Well, it's just connective tissue. I mean, it gets stuck in your teeth, but it's there for later on.
Flavor saver.
It's right. You got to enjoy it later on. I mean, come on.
You are right in an observation.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like.
We have no kids to support that, but at least in my household, we are.
But you bring up a good point. You know, we're teasing you about not eating it, you know, and that's one of those things. It's a personal preference thing. One of the things I talk about with my students: never underestimate the perception of flavor. Okay, never underestimate the perception of flavor. It's probably more powerful than the actual flavor. Classic example: if you think it tastes good, it's going to taste good. All right. I use this example all the time, all right? Once again, we may work for UK, we don't make Coach Cal type money. And if you're familiar with Kentucky, we make another product that's extremely popular, all right? And that other product that we make that is extremely popular all right? There's one brand that is one of the most sought after bourbons in the world. That's the Pappy Van Winkle, all right? And the Pappy Van Winkle, there's a 23-year-old Pappy Van Winkle. That means that it was put in that barrel before this group of kids were born. And those bottles come out and they're worth what, $400 or $500 retail, and then a secondary market, $3,000, $4,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a bottle of bourbon. I've not had it yet, all right? And I've got myself convinced that it's going to be the best tasting bourbon I've ever had, all right? Now, I used to tour guide at Buffalo Trace, and I can tell you right now what I've learned when I was at Buffalo Trace. The longer it's in that barrel, guess what? The more it tastes like that barrel. So that 23-year-old Pappy probably tastes like drinking an oak barrel, all right? But I got my mind, it's gonna be the best damn thing I've ever had before, you know, because that's that perception of flavor. And so if she thinks that it's this texture thing, I'm not gonna like it, it really doesn't matter. She's got that in her mind, all right? Same thing my wife, won't drink diet soda, can't stand the taste of it, all right? Doesn't matter if it tastes the same or not, she has that in her mind. So we got this cap off of here, all right? And you're still standing. Okay. This was the point where the folks walked out, all right? Now what's interesting, this cap, he is more tender than the ribeye muscle. But we got some issues. See that heavy connective tissue right there we were talking about, that there's a texture issue there? It's right there. And what's that designed to do? And you're thinking, why did God put it there? It allows those muscles to slide across each other when they're contracting. But since we turn this into food, we've got to do something with it. So we just take our knife, come underneath it, angle the knife up a little bit. Take it out just like that. Because we got to get that out of there. Just like so. Now there's all kinds of these new beef cuts that we have, and probably the one that's the oldest of the new beef cuts, that kind of sounds like an oxymoron, is the flat iron, okay? That was one of those new beef cuts. And where this stuff is coming from, folks, is the muscle profiling study that was done 25, 30 years ago now. It, in my mind, doesn't seem like it's that long. But what they
98, wasn't it?
yeah, it might have been. Yeah. So, but what happened is the researchers, University of Florida, University of Nebraska, they went in here and they
Dr. Johnson, right? Dwayne Johnson?
Dwayne Johnson, yeah, Florida, yep.
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
no,
Florida,
yeah.
Dwayne Johnson, yep, absolutely, yeah. And they went in here and they teased out all these muscles and performed tests on. One of them was a tenderness test, and they found out that flat iron, or what at the time his Latin name is the infraspinatus muscle, he was pretty tender. But we got, problem of it is he had some issues, and so they changed the way they cut, did some different angles on it, and the flat iron was born, okay? And that's what led to these as well, is just reevaluating the way we cut these things. And so now, I've got a new cut, the ribeye cap steak, okay? And don't fret, when he cooks those up, they're gonna puff up. So it may look like a small portion size now, because I know you guys are hungry, okay? They're gonna puff up a little bit, and these guys are gonna be more tender than that ribeye muscle, okay? And now all of a sudden, guess what? We've reduced that portion size. We reduced that portion size, and I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna clean this up again. That kernel fat that Dr. Lemcooler mentioned, that's what I just took out. And that's one of those things that it's gotta be there. It's just a pain to deal with it. We had a big event last week on campus. It was our Ag Round.
This video was brought to you by the University of Maine Cooperative Extension Grazing Behavior Lab, the Maine New Farmers Project, and the Maine Beef Producers Association. And let's check out those sweet karate moves one more.